You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency? Hello guys, and welcome everyone to Day 3. This is Lance, and today we're continuing with the show series, The Kansas Bigfoot. You've tuned in to Monster 911. I'm so glad to be with you once again, and if you've experienced something that frightened you and you would like to understand what it was you saw, call me toll-free 24/7 at 1-866-306-8085. I'll personally return your call, and all reports are treated with sensitivity and names are kept confidential. Now, today's show will absolutely not disappoint. It's too incredible to forget. This mother showed immense poise and courage to guide her and her son out of this terrifying Bigfoot situation they were in. This was a day to remember for both of them. They had no gun and only a small truck. Listen to what occurred and how they barely escaped from this remote location in the middle of Kansas. And don't forget tomorrow's show, as this guest reveals more details as to this encounter that changed both her and her son's life forever.
But I did have my actual very, very first real encounter with a Bigfoot myself. And unfortunately, the one that saw, it's the son that saw Dogman, was with me.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's the one that gives, I have nightmares about him still. And I think it's because, like I said, when I lost my husband, I raised those kids pretty near on my own. I was only about 2 years old when his dad left us. And at the time when we had this encounter, it was kind of a milestone for my son because he had just gotten his first truck.
Oh, okay.
That year, and I had not had a chance to have him take his mama out for a drive. And so it was kind of a special thing because usually I'd been the one driving all the time and for a change, I was going to be the one being driven.
Right. Special moment.
And so we got up on a Sunday morning, and it was early August, and we decided we'd take off for a Sunday drive on the dirt roads. And I had chosen an area that I was real familiar with. It was over by, it was not far from us, and it was just a real nice drive generally. And I had chosen to go to what's called, some people call it, and there's a road that it wasn't far from us. We lived on the outskirts of town. We lived close enough to being on the outskirts of towns that we had foxes and all kinds of wild animals everywhere. We had creeks. We had a creek about a block away, several ponds not far from us, a small little natural conservationist area that we would take trails down. We'd walk over that way. It was just a couple blocks from us. And anyway, the was just, oh gosh, I'm thinking it was about maybe 15 miles from us. And I thought, well, that'll just be a nice little Sunday drive. We'll go before it gets too hot. This was in 2011, early August. We'd had a very, very hot, sweltering hot summer that year, and not a lot of rain. And I had noticed when we had gone for our various walks, one of the things that I like to do is I like to look at all the birds. We've got, I think they're called storks. They're billed storks. I can't remember what their name is exactly, but they're like a stork. And those had started coming in. And there was one area over there in that little conservation area that I would see it quite a bit. They're huge and they're beautiful. And I hadn't seen it for a while. That creek that ran through that area had pretty much dried up. There just wasn't hardly any water in it at all. No ducks, no nothing, no wild animals as far as birds go. And I knew over in that it does not dry up. It'll get smaller, but in that particular area, I'd never seen it dry up. And I thought, well, I bet you that stork's over there along with those birds that are normally in that creek area. And I told my son, let's go over there. So it starts out kind of a paved area, and then it goes into a dirt road. And when it rains, that area floods out. So generally, as a rule, nobody can get through there. But as hot and as dry as it was, they had just graded the roads, put down fresh gravel and stuff like that, or rocks. They're like rocks, bigger than gravel rocks, but they're the rocks, white rocks. And so it was perfect. I was like, let's go look up there. And we did. We started down that direction. And he said, Mom, why don't you drive my truck? And I was like, really? You want me to drive it? I said, I was hoping to drive it, for you to drive me. And he said, no. He said, you drive my truck. See how it drives. I said, okay. So I got in it and we drove down that direction. And as we were going down that way, we got to, maybe 2 miles from that wetland, and there was a truck coming the opposite direction toward us, and they were moving like a bat out of hell. And I pulled completely over because they were driving erratic. And I thought at first, great, it's probably, I thought maybe it was drunk. So, to be honest, a lot of people drive those back roads to drink or get high. And I thought, well, it's probably what it is. And I was a little ticked. And I looked over at them, and I noticed they were wearing hunting gear. Well, it's August. What are you doing with hunting gear on? There's nothing to hunt. Not that I know of. And my son pointed out to me that the guys had in the back windows assault rifles. And he said, well, maybe they went down there and they're not supposed to, but maybe they were using it as a firing range. And I thought, well, that's, I suppose, not everybody abides by the laws. So I suppose so. So, I'm like, okay, so let's head on over there. When we get in there, we pull in. What you do is you cross, again, I believe is the street that I keep talking about. We cross the street. I believe that's what it is. And go about another mile, and you'll hit a driveway on the left-hand side. Take that driveway in, it'll take you right into the parking lot. It's just an old parking lot, gravel parking lot, dirt and gravel. We got out, and I was looking around, and it was dead silent. And that's I've been there dozens and dozens of times over the last 30 years. I've never known it to be quiet, not dead silent, quiet. And I thought it was weird. I mean, I really did. I thought that was odd, but I wasn't connecting any dots. I was looking around. I kept thinking, okay, well, darn, there's no birds. There's nothing here. So we're just kind of walking around in the parking lot, and we decided we walked across the parking lot. There's a cornfield, and the corn stalks are huge. They're over my head. They're about 6 foot. And they were really, they were dried up looking. I was kind of surprised. I thought, the farmer hasn't harvested this. And I thought, well, maybe I just don't know enough about harvesting. Maybe it's just not time. But they looked in sorry shape. Like I said, we'd had a very hot, dry summer. So I thought, well, maybe he's just going to use them for something else other than, I didn't really know. I mean, it was weird. It just, to me, that there was this huge crop of corn that's about a mile wide and several miles long, and it hadn't been harvested. But I thought, well, okay, whatever, it's the farmers. And I was hearing noises inside the cornfield. And they didn't sound like a big animal, about a medium size. And so I was trying to, we walked closer over to it, and I was kind of looking inside the cornfield trying to see what I could see. My son was too. And didn't see anything, so I decided, well, there's a grassy area at the edge of the parking lot, and it kind of goes off into this grassy area. It's kind of like a little hiking trail. And I told my son, I said, let's walk out that way a little bit, see if we can see anything. We didn't see anything, so we walked back. We didn't go very far. And I was standing there at that cornfield, still looking in at it in the parking, on the parking grounds. And I was like, well, kind of disappointed. I was like, well, I guess we better just we'll get back in the truck and go for a drive. And we turned around, and as we turned around, I heard this growl. And this growl was extremely deep. And it went from an extremely deep growl and crescendoed up into an extremely high-pitched, almost like a whistle. And it was so loud that it made my ears pop, and it sounded like it was just vibrating through me. And it was in the cornfield. Sounded like it was coming from the cornfield.
Oh, were you in you were not in the car yet.
No, we
Okay.
had turned around from the cornfield and were facing our truck. And we were getting ready to walk across the parking lot to get into the truck. We hadn't taken a step yet. We had just turned around when that growl started. And in my head, I was thinking, what the hell kind of animal was that? I've never heard an animal do that. That is not a bobcat. I had heard rumors and stories about mountain lions. People had spotted mountain lions. But I didn't, it did not dawn on me that it, you know, I've heard mountain lion screams and yells, listened to them on different YouTube videos, different things like that. I never heard anything like this. Nothing. And we froze. My son and I, we both just froze in our step. And I immediately started scanning around, and I was scanning around the cornfield and stuff like that. I was thinking, great, I have no weapons. I have nothing. I don't even have a cell phone. I have nothing. I wasn't even sure why I was thinking about a cell phone. Who am I going to call? And the amount of fear that I felt, not for me, but for my son, was overwhelming. And I can remember in my mind, I could tell that it felt like I was seriously confused in my head. And there was this, I recognized it as fight or flight. And I remember thinking, a part of my brain thinking at that time that you cannot panic, you have to protect your child. I don't know what this thing is, but it does not sound, friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to protect your child no matter what. And I told my son, I said, you heard that, right? And I didn't look at him. I was looking around. I was scanning everything like my dad had taught me. You scan all the way around. You scan every single area. You just scan it as far back around as you can. You scan everything. And I was doing that as I was talking to him, and I was talking very quietly to him and very calmly. I said, son, we're going to walk to the truck very, very slowly, very calmly, and we're going to get in the truck. Okay? I said, do not run. I said, take a deep breath, relax, and let's start walking. And he did. And he said, what was that? And I said, keep your voice down. I said, right now, we're just going to concentrate on, I want you to walk to that truck. I said, son, I said, if anything happens, I said, I want you to get to that truck. Get in that truck and go get help. I said, do not worry about me. He said, okay. And his voice was cracked a little bit there because that's when he knew that this is really bad. This is really bad. Well, as I was scanning and talking to him, I noticed on my right-hand side, across the road, there was something very large and very black on the side of the road, across the road, on the side of the road. And there was I don't know what it was. It looked like somebody, like they had been doing construction and stuff, and there was like a huge mound of dirt that was probably about 3 or 4 feet wide. It came up to about maybe 7 feet high on the south side, and then it crescendoed. It basically got smaller and smaller as you went over toward the driveway of the entryway of the parking lot. And I was at an angle where I could see that thing very clearly at that time. I had not, the truck was parked to where once we got to the truck, there would be no way of seeing that as we got closer to the truck. But at that point, I could clearly see this thing. And it was huge, whatever it was. It was not moving at that point in time. And I just kept watching it because I knew it had not been there when we pulled in. And I told my son, I said, do you see, there's a sign there, it tells you this is the, it tells you about hunting season. They use this area to hunt. And I said, look at that. I said, son, look at that sign. I said, don't move your head, just your eyes. He says, I said, do you see that sign? And he says, yes. And I said, now, move your eyes directly to the left, or to the right. Move your eyes directly to the right across the road. And I waited a few seconds as we were walking. And I said, do you see that black thing on the road? And he says, yeah, what is that? And I said, I don't know. And I looked over at it, and it still had not moved. And we walked a little bit further. I kept looking at it, keeping my head straight, but looking at it. And I noticed suddenly it moved. And as it did, it raised its head up, and I could see a face. Now, at that point in time, we were about 150 yards from it. And I'm guessing that it was around 150 yards. And I could see, what I could see was just a black face. I couldn't see anything else at that point in time. I was too far away. It had moved its arm, its left arm, and it was just basically all black. Everything on it was black. And I got to looking, I was paying really, really close attention, and I could see its hands. And it had hands. It did not have claws or anything like that. It had hands. There was hair covering up to, the top part of the hand, but the fingers were black on the top. The palms, on the other hand, I could see the fingers and the palms of the fingers on the other side. They were lighter skinned. They were much lighter skinned, almost like a gray. And it was playing in the dirt. It was just playing in the dirt. It was hunched over and down which is why it just looked like something like a black figure. But then when it moved its head and I could see its arm and its hands and stuff, I could see that it was playing in the dirt, and I still had no idea what this thing was. My thoughts at that point in time was, wait a minute, we got a bunch of college kids out here playing a prank. Is this a prank? But that gut feeling that I talked about,
Yes.
it said, no, this is real. This is real. That's not a college kid. It's too big to be a college kid. And that's the realest costume I've ever seen. And we got in the truck, and when we just kept walking till we got to the truck, we were, I would say, from where the truck was to where the cornfield was probably around 125 feet. Got in the truck, and unfortunately my son got in the driver's side. And I said, do you want to trade places? He said, no. He says, I can do this. I can drive. I said, okay. We sat there, and I said, okay. I said, that thing is going to be right out there where we've got to pull out of. We're trapped. That's the only way in and out is that driveway. And when we get to that driveway, that thing is only going to be about maybe 50 feet max. And I said, what I want you to do is I want you to pull out very, very quickly. I want you to stomp on that gas to get out of here. I said, do not slow down. I said, I know we're taking a risk with the possibility that somebody might be coming one way or the other. But at this point in time, with that thing there, I really seriously doubt there's anyone around. They wouldn't be coming out like that. So he got in when he started the vehicle, gunned it out back, gunned it toward the driveway. He did hesitate a little bit. And as he was heading toward that driveway, because he was going to slow down a little bit to check the road. And as he did so, I saw that creature was more like about 10 feet and trying to reach for the truck.
Oh, man.
And I could clearly see its face at that point in time. And I could see its height at that time. When I was 150 feet away, I couldn't really see how big it was. I could see that it was huge, but I couldn't really see how big. And the way it had been, it was kind of squatting and hunched down at the same time. Like the upper body was down, facing down, like looking at the dirt.
Yes.
And I really couldn't estimate the height at that point in time. It had its hand out, reaching for the truck, and the other hand had something in it. I didn't know what. And then I realized it was those white rocks. And I told my son, I said, gun it, turn and gun it now. He did. And as he did, the dirt, we spun out a little bit as we turned. And we literally pelted that thing with those rocks. just literally pelted its chest. The dust flew up in its face. And I think that's what really ticked it off. I think that's what really made it mad. This creature was about 10 feet tall.
Wow.
He was 10 feet tall.
Wow.
I knew he was big, by the way. I mean, he was bigger than a deer. I could tell that. He looked like he was about the size of a bull. You know, and at first I thought, when I first saw it, I kept thinking, it's so black, it reminds me of the black bulls I used to see out in the fields. And I have to take a breath for a little bit.
That's okay. It's not often that someone sees it that close, especially in the daytime. I don't know if you heard my brother's encounter. I won't get into it all right now, but I'll just say this. It changed his life. He had an encounter with a close friend of his. Basically, this thing came running after their truck, reaching out, trying to grab the tailgate of the truck. And my brother had a .357 Magnum pointing at it. Yeah. And it changed his life, which changed my life, which basically that's one of the reasons why we started this show, is because of that moment that just completely changed his life. His buddy didn't ever want to talk about it again, did not want to go back. It was just a defining moment for my brother, for sure. Took him 2 years to tell me.
Well, and that's the whole thing. I didn't see it for a little bit because I turned to say something to my son. I said, once he turned, and he got control of the truck again, I said, floor it. I said, floor it as fast as you can, but do it safely. I said, do it safely. I said, if we wreck this truck, we're going to die. Okay? And he said, I got this. And I looked back, and this thing it had thrown some rocks at us. And it had one of the rocks had hit the back of the truck. And it hit hard enough that it made a dent. And I started looking at the cornfield because I knew that there's no way that thing had made that growl. That meant that there was another one in that cornfield. And we had to drive by that cornfield to get out of there on that road. That cornfield started at that driveway, and it went all the way to the end, to the very end where the stop sign was, half a mile away. So I was worried about that. I was watching that cornfield, and when I turned back around, I said something to my son, and he said, "Mom," he said, that thing's still following us. And I looked back, and it was actually it was on all fours, running at us. It was on all fours.
Dang. It was coming down that dirt road?
Yeah, right behind us. It was following us. And I said, you need to go a little faster, son. I said, how fast you going? And he said, I'm going about 25. I said, go a little faster. So he kicked it up to about 30, 35. And he said, "Oh my God, Mom!" He had looked in the rearview mirror, and he said, that thing's reaching for the back of the truck. It's got the truck, Mom." And I said, "Floor it." And he floored it, and that thing got up and started running. We had gained some ground on it, and it got up on its legs and started running on its feet, and it caught up to us.
Oh my gosh!
And it started to reach out to grab the truck again. And my son said, "Mom, it's catching up with the truck again. It's catching up with the truck again." And I said, "Son, give it more gas. You've got to get away from this thing. We've got to get away." And it reached out to grab the truck again, and I don't know, when we floored it, it broke its grip on the truck. And by that time, it had chased us all but a half mile. And when I looked at the speedometer, we were going 45 miles an hour. And suddenly, when it broke loose of the truck, it shot back off into the field, in that same cornfield. And I mean, we were not. I mean, I did not feel like we were out of danger yet. We were far from out of danger just because we didn't see it. In fact, that made me feel worse because I didn't see it. I didn't know where it was at. And I told him, I said, "Just keep going. Don't stop." We got down to the stop sign, made a real quick, like, Batman stop, basically, or California stop. And crossed that road and got the heck out of there. And then we went home, and we didn't say anything to each other the whole way home. I mean, it wasn't that far away anyway, but we didn't say a word to each other. When we got home, I asked my son, I said, "Are you all right?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "What was that?" And I said, "Son, I think that was a Bigfoot. I don't know, but I think that was a Bigfoot." I said, I'm going to go in the house and I'm going to look and see if, I think part of my brain was still not willing to accept that it was a Bigfoot. Because I kept thinking, no, there's no way that had to have been a bear. That had to be in anything. We have zoos, 70 miles one direction and about 40 miles, I think, 30, 40 miles the other direction. Maybe one of their animals got loose. Maybe there's a circus somewhere. We've had circuses come through various times. Maybe one of their animals got loose. So I'm on the internet looking, checking, trying to find anything that makes sense in my head. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't anything. There was nothing out there nothing. And then, of course, the thought crossed my mind to call the police.
Right.
And I was like, what am I going to say to them that's going to make any sense? What am I going to tell them that's going to make any sense?
Nothing. Really,
Yeah,
no crime
nothing.
was committed, no laws were broke, nothing was stolen. I mean, that's outside of that, you're just reporting what? Uh, uh,
Yeah, what am I using?
it's there's no such thing as the Bigfoot police or Cryptid police, right? So
Yeah,
that's why I tell people, and I'm very serious when I say this. And it doesn't mean that I don't have profound respect for our law enforcement or the Department of Natural Resources or game wardens. I have the utmost respect for them. But when I tell people, when you make a call to these departments, that gets the ball rolling, and they have a special number that they don't talk about, but they will call, and you will have federal people coming in that area, and that area will be closed off in hours. And you will be talked to for hours to never say a word about this. And
I didn't.
they'll monitor your phones, your computers. They'll follow you when you don't think anyone's following you. They'll monitor when you grocery shop. It sounds very bizarre. It sounds very Hollywood movie-ish, so to speak. But this is real. And these creatures are real. And they do this because they've been doing this for years to cover up these real creatures that roam across America, and they're involved in other creature sightings that aren't a Bigfoot, that aren't a dogman creature either. Their job is top secrecy, and they withhold the truth from the public in fear of panic and in fear of revenue, massive revenue loss in certain aspects of our society. If people knew what existed out there, how many people would stop fishing, stop hunting, stop visiting national parks and wetlands, stop
Well, that's
buying...
the reason why for years I did not talk to anyone. I had one person that was from Northern California that is a friend of mine, and I talked to them, told them what happened. He's a retired Navy officer. And he absolutely believed everything I said. He never talked to anyone. He's long since passed on. Never told anyone, I guess. I never had any issues. I'd actually never talked to anyone. I had tried to get a hold of Beef Row and talk to them, and they never called me back. I had wrote out a portion of my story, sent it to them, sent them my phone number, and they never called me. And then I got, what was it? I don't think it was last year. I think the year before, I had a Finding Bigfoot Facebook page that they put out. And I told a portion of my story then, and I was shaking so bad. Apparently, I was not really ready to sit down and talk to people and discuss this, because I got about a portion of it out, and I just stopped. Couldn't do it. And then I had nightmares. I still occasionally have nightmares. There's I don't know what you want to call it, but it has something to do with parenting. I felt guilty for having put my son in that position. There was a guilt
But
for having put my son not only in danger, Not that I did it on purpose, I didn't. And I was worried about how he would handle things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew how it was messing with me. And I worried about him. And the truth of the matter was that once we got in and I asked him if he was okay, he went to his room, he shut the door, and he didn't talk to anybody. So I got off the computer, and I went out and I tried to talk to him, and I was talking to him outside the room, and he was like, "I'm fine, Mom. I just need to rest. I don't feel well. I feel sick." And the truth of the matter is, I felt sick too. I felt very sick, and at first I thought it was stress. But the fact of the matter is that we were both sick for several days, very sick, like we had the flu. For several days. I had to miss work, he had to miss school. We were very sick. Or not school, he had to miss some work. He was working. And we got to feeling a little better. I could never figure out what that was. I never knew if it was stress or what it was, but it was almost like flu symptoms.
Well, there's probably it was probably overlapping symptoms when you have such a dump of adrenaline in the body. Not only is it exhausting after, but it creates an extreme amount of fatigue and exhaustion later, once everything wears off. But the other part of this is, now I can't say I'm definitive on this, I'm just trying to put things together, is that the possibility of when you heard this growl that just kind of rattled you, it shook you, you said it kind of, I think you used the words, it kind of shook your insides.
Yeah, well, when I heard that growl, there was something that was, it was like for a little bit there, my mind was blocked. I mean, there was a state of confusion, like, and I really did. I've never been real sure if that was fight or flight or if there was something else going on there, because I've never experienced that. I've always been, my whole life I've always been, either you fight or you flight. It's
right.
It's been pretty cut and dry for me in various situations that I've been in before. Just different things that have happened, as far as being a woman, working nights, being alone. I'm not a very big woman. I'm only 5'6" and about 120 pounds, so.
Right.
I've been in situations where I've had to be in dark parking lots and dark alleys and, trying to get to my car after work. There's that fight or flight there that happens when you hear a noise, when you hear something.
Right.
Or you see someone in that dark. So yeah, I've always been pretty much no nonsense about things on that. As far as, but this was confusing. It was like something was really trying to confuse me. And I found it really weird as I fought it, because I was fighting it in my brain. I was fighting it, that we were standing absolutely perfectly still, in a line, him on one side, me on the other, and we were both standing completely still. And that's weird to me. That I was like, why are we not moving?
Yeah.
Because we were starting to take our first step. And I don't know what that was. I have no
Well,
idea.
I don't know how many of these shows you've listened to, but one of the things that we suspect, and there's some animals presently that we are aware that actually has this ability, and that is something called infrasound. And infrasound is elicited by some of the feline family, such as tigers, jaguars, leopards, but tigers, and it's a sound emitted from its vocal cords. It is a sound that penetrates, it has a deeper penetration and tends to stun or temporarily make stationary or paralyze, if you will, almost affecting at a nervous system level its prey. So it has a tactical advantage on advancing to its prey. Well, more than one occasion, multiple occasions on different shows, including ours, have we interviewed people, have people brought up the fact that they would have sound go almost penetrate deep inside their guts to the they could feel it. And it confused them, and they don't know why. They were just either standing there or not thinking at a level like, hurry up, let's go, and they became nauseous. So I think it's possible here that not only had you had all this adrenaline going, but you both were in shock because of what happened. That's another factor. So you have adrenaline dump, you're in shock, and then the possibility of this infrasound directed at both of you could be the reason why you both were so ill. Because after it was said and done and things calmed down, and this infrasound being directed at you, that could be a plausible explanation. It very well could be.
Well, I can tell you that one of the things that kind of brought me to was my ears popped and started ringing. When I hit those higher notes, there must have been notes that were even higher. Whatever it was, my ears popped and they started ringing. And that's actually kind of what brought me out of that, because when they popped, it hurt. I felt pain. And that kind of brought me more into focus of what I needed to do and what I needed to tell my son and what we needed to do next. And I had to really fight. I mean, at that point, I think I was fighting fear, flight. I must have been, because there was a portion of me that, there was like a higher instinct in there that I was, like I said, I was scanning around like my dad told me to do when I had, when you're scoping an area.
Yes.
And I was doing that as I was talking to him, concentrating where we were going. And even after I spotted that thing, I knew there was still something in that cornfield. There, I didn't really think about it till later, but I thought, well, can they throw their voice? Well, I don't know. I don't. But what I did know at that point in time was I've got something that's obviously behind me, and I've got something obviously in front of me, and I'm going to have to get out of here somehow with this child safely. And if I can't, then I'm going to sacrifice myself so that my son can get out of here. If that's what it takes. But even once we got home and we were both sick, there was still a little bit of, I was very, very shaky. I was very at times a little bit on the confused side. It was like I just really didn't want to deal with anything or anyone. And that lasted for several days.
I think in your shock, there's different forms of shock as well. Now, we're talking a couple things that we think plausibly may have happened or occurred during this moment, but I think with the growl, this noise, this pitch that you heard that popped your ears, and we've known that there has been some people that experienced this infrasound that has made them very ill. It's a deep penetrating type of sound for confusion purposes, is what we think. And the other part here too is that with the shock, you both may have had some level of post-traumatic stress, which is a severe form of shock, and it amplifies the frontal lobe of the brain. It's like the brain over electrifies itself, and it's very fatiguing. You can get severe malaise, exhaustion, and confusion, and it's possible there's overlapping causation here, is what I'm saying. It's hard to pinpoint one thing because you had so many things happening, and even at your level, being a parent, having a different level of protective fear, that just added to it. That amplified everything.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, he was down for a couple of days. I was down for about 3 or 4 days. We had a severe thunderstorm, and a couple of days later, and I had started back to work, and it was really tough for me to go back to work because I felt unnerved. I mean, it didn't feel like me at all. And I kept thinking, well, you know what? I'm just going to get into the routine of my life and do the routine things that I do, and eventually I'll come around. Things will kick in. The hardest part was that my job was in that area within about maybe 9-10 miles from where we had seen that thing. And I used to have to wait on my boss to unlock the doors for me to get in. And I can remember having to sit there, and the parking lot faced out toward where we had seen that thing. And I just kept looking and scanning. There's a field, there's a road behind where my place of employment was. And then there's a field, and then there's a fairly thick tree line. And I used to scan that whole area, because I didn't know if that thing was going to come back at us or not, if it was going to come. And, I don't know, it was probably not very logical, but I just kept scanning that area. And I made it through okay for a while, and then pretty soon I just started, I never didn't not scan that area, but, I did all right. I came around okay. In 2014, there was a lady that claimed that in that area that she had almost hit a white one. And it's on Beef Row. And it made the news.